you see, Mom and Dad.
How long was it before someone noticed that you were anorexic?
Besides my close friends, it took a couple months. And really, besides my closest friends, no one's really noticed yet. And it's been well over a year.
It was probably about a year before anyone knew, because, I mean, it wasn't as bad as it got in the beginning.
Well, for me, things went pretty slow, so I lost weight little by little. It took about 2 years for me to ultimately get to my lowest weight. So it took about 2 years for somebody to actually notice. At the time, I thought it was because nobody cared enough about me to notice, but maybe it was just because I was good at hiding it. Which, believe it or not, it takes skill to hide it. When you were at your worst, how much food did you consume? Well, I greatly over-exaggerated what I counted in my daily calorie consumption. So, I mean, I probably counted about up to 600 to 700 calories a day. But then again, I was under that, and I was exercising as well. So I exercised about like 2 hours a day. So that burning, 400 calories. So maybe my daily consumption was like 300. And then, of course, there were days where I wouldn't eat at all. But I didn't have many of those.
So if you cannot finish your dinner, she says she's eaten enough. Sophie's trying to make herself thinner.
What do you think is the major cause of anorexia?
There are several major causes: underlying depression, anxiety, relational aggression issues in the schools, elementary through high school, where kids are made fun of or people say things unintentionally and it really can be hurtful. Stick with that person, that can be a trigger. Issues within the family, societal influences, magazines that are out there, all the sensationalism in the news about these popular, TV stars and following their weight. For an example, Britney Spears, Lindsay Lohan. I think perfectionism, which can be more like a personality trait. There is new research that's starting to show that genetics may play a role as well. There's really not one major cause. It really is, I like to describe it more like a loaded gun. You kind of have all these bullets in the gun, and it just takes one more stressor. If you have 3 or 4 of these issues going on in your life or around you, you have one more stressor that can pull the trigger.
Do you feel insecure when looking at models in magazines or on TV?
Yeah, I mean, I feel insecure looking at anybody, and even on my best days, looking at a magazine or seeing someone on TV that I'm jealous of can really destroy my day.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I feel insecure looking at anybody, any ordinary person. I feel insecure about my own body, so that whenever I look at anybody, I feel insecure. Especially people who are picked to be in magazines, they're supposed to be the stereotype of the perfect female, the perfect male even. So I feel very insecure when I look at them, because I picture myself less than them.
I do, because I feel like I want to look like them. Because they look so perfect. And then I get really pissed off that I can't be perfect like them. So that just causes me to be even worse.
Says she's eaten too much.
Part of the definition of anorexia is a loss of period. Obviously, that's not something you can see. It's something that has to be reported. Unfortunately, in men, we don't really have an accurate diagnosis or criteria for anorexia because men don't get periods. So the criteria for men is way off. We don't have accurate criteria, so how can you label actually a male with anorexia? You can't, according to the official criteria.
What do you think about anorexia from the male perspective? Is it harder for a guy?
I think it is harder for a guy, because you get all those people telling you that you're gay or you're a faggot, and you just can't open up to people. Because when you open up to someone, they're like, but you're a guy, you can't have an eating disorder. What the fuck's wrong with you? So it comes down to, it's harder to be open about it. And if it's hard to be open about it, you can't get help. Because people are more in denial about it. And when you don't get help, it's just so easy to be bad that it just gets worse and worse. Why won't guys admit that they have an eating disorder?
Again, I think it's the shame and the guilt and the false belief that this is a female disorder. And there's a lot of, I guess, pride in not stepping forward.
Why do you think it is that guys are less likely to admit they have an eating disorder?
I think there's a lot of reasons why men are less likely to admit that they have an eating disorder. I think, first of all, it's a stigma that it's a female disease, and so heterosexual males certainly would not want to be labeled as having a female disease. I think that's the first thing. I think the second thing is because it's identified more readily in females, males fly under the radar, so they may not even know that in fact they have an eating disorder. If you, for example, go to a gym and you see the quote-unquote muscle heads and the guys that are bulking up, pretty much all those folks more than likely have an eating disorder. But they would never classify themselves as having an eating disorder nor recognize that they have it. They certainly have body dysmorphic syndrome, which is an important component of eating disorders. So I think there's many reasons why men don't admit, in large part, they don't know that they have one.
Who is more likely to seek treatment, guys or girls?
Definitely we see many more females seek treatment than males. Personally, I only have 3 males in treatment right now. The unofficial stats, or at least what's commonly quoted, is that roughly around 10% of people with eating disorders are male, 90% are female. But at a recent major conference called the Redford Conference, at a lecture I found, they said that around 25% of patients, in fact, are male. Many of them have binge eating disorder and are sort of hiding in the woodwork. So we may have many more males that are actually hiding and not seeking treatment. And we're starting to see more and more males come to treatment. So I think over the next couple of years we'll see more men in treatment, and the numbers are going to shift in actuality that we can actually measure.
What is the ratio of treating guys to girls?
I personally have, out of my caseload, I have 3 male patients and about 20 female patients.
Yeah.
What kind of treatment do you and have you received?
I was an inpatient for 3 weeks, and then I went to a day program for 2 weeks. And I see a therapist, but it was kind of on and off. I kind of avoided treatment for a really long time. So I went to a nutritionist for a little bit, but I stopped seeing her because I didn't trust her.
What kind of treatment do you and have you received? Well, when finally people started bombarding me with concern about my anorexia, I ended up in the hospital and I ended up in LIJ for 40 days. Well, there the treatment was around the clock. I woke up at 6:20 every day, and until the time I finally fell asleep at night, I was getting treatment. Now I have what we in the anorexic community like to call a team. I have a doctor, I have a nutritionist, I have a psychiatrist, and a therapist. And at first, I had to see my therapist every week, I had to see my psychiatrist once a month, and I had to see my doctor and nutritionist, that group, I had to see them every week. Now that I've gotten a little bit better, I see everybody once a month, except for my therapist, who I see every other week. What kind of treatment do you and have you received?
I see a therapist and a nutritionist, and I also occasionally see some doctors. And I'm also on an antidepressant and a mood stabilizer.
Did the hospital surroundings make you more depressed?
At first, I went into the hospital very depressed, so depressed. I was in the hospital. When I was in the hospital, I was even more depressed. I was crying hysterically. I wanted to cut more than anything in the entire world. All I wanted was my knife. It was horrible. It took a while for me to get comfortable with the hospital surroundings and to really, then I met some people and it was amazing, and then it was okay, but at first it was horrible.